I scooped up this metal filing cabinet from Facebook Marketplace for $25. So to begin my project, I took it out of my van and I put it up on some raised ladders just so it's easier to work with. And I removed all the drawers. I can save the drawers for another project or take them to scrap metal. For this project, I do not need them. Then I'm going to come in with this rust paint that is good for bare or rusted metal. Shade is flat black, and I'm going to paint the entire filing cabinet, the sides, the fronts, and the backs, making sure as well that I get the top parts of the filing cabinet, so the middle pieces where the drawers were. I'm using a foam roller for easy application. I'm going to do 2 full coats and let it fully dry in between each coat. Then I'm going to use my drill and I'm going to drill in some holes in the bottom of my filing cabinet, and these are going to be for drainage. So you can see I've set it up here on my porch. To weight it down, I'm going to be putting in 2 bags of pea stone gravel, and the neat thing about this, since they're just for weight, I'm going to leave them in the bags. That's way if I ever need them for a different project or something else, they're in the bags and I don't have to scoop them out from the bottom. Then I'm going to go to my yard and I collected all these old leaves. This is great because I'm going to fill up the bulk of the cabinet with the leaves so I don't have to waste a lot of my potting mix. So I fill it up till there's about a quarter left at the top, and then I fill that last quarter with my potting mix. I've used potting mix that I bought brand new, as well as some old planters that I had laying around. I dumped in some of that potting mix too. Then I'm going to go ahead and plant in my flowers. So this year I've decided to go with some nice little pansies here, and I'm just planting them into each square of the filing cabinet, giving sufficient space in between. And once those are all planted, this is my finished planter. I am so happy with how this project turned out. Like I said, I scooped this filing cabinet up for $25 and I created something new and trendy with it. These metal large planters, people pay hundreds of dollars in the store or online to have on their porch, and I created mine out of a $25 old rusted cabinet. If you want to recreate this project, I highly suggest checking out places like Facebook Marketplace, thrift stores, or other secondhand places to scoop up a filing cabinet for super cheap. People are constantly getting rid of filing cabinets, so they're not very hard to find. I'm super excited that I was able to share this project with you. I hope that it inspires you to get creative, use old repurposed materials to create something new and fabulous for your front porch without spending a ton of money.
The first thing I did was clean off the filing cabinet. I washed it down to remove all the dirt, oil, debris, and dust. Next, I removed all the hardware. We bought 2 stair balusters to support the opposite side of the desk. We started by measuring them against the filing cabinet. After marking them, we cut them with our saw. We decided where we wanted the plywood to go on top of the desk. We measured where the screws needed to go to attach to the stair baluster. Ours were approximately 3 inches from the corners. My husband pre-drilled the holes in the board, and he made an X on the balusters and then pre-drilled the center hole. He lined up the balusters under the wood, and he used the drill to place the screw through the board and into the baluster to secure the legs into place. We used some putty to cover the screws on the top. We smoothed it out and let it dry overnight. I used my sander to sand down the putty to make it level, and I sanded all the sides and the edges. After the sanding was done, I wiped down the board with a damp cloth to clean it before painting. I painted the filing cabinet with Dixie Belle Slick Stick. This allows the paint to adhere to metal. I painted the board with Dixie Belle Driftwood paint and let everything dry overnight. I wanted more of a driftwood look, so I first put on Dixie Belle whitewash glaze and I let it dry. And I next added the Dixie Belle Van Dyke brown glaze. To achieve this look, you start by dry brushing on the white glaze and then wiping with a paper towel as you go. After that dries, you do the same with the brown glaze. I painted the filing cabinet with Dixie Belle blue paint. With the hardware that was removed from the filing cabinet, I painted it with a Dixie Belle metallic silver base and top coat. Here is the completed desk. The great thing about this desk is that you can make it right-handed or you can make it left-handed. I'm loving my new DIY table, and I hope this inspired you to upcycle something you find into something you need.
Cut a straw about 1 inch long, tape it to your sewing machine, and thread yarn through, and sewed my design shape that I drew on the tea towel. Roll some cotton rope into a circle while sewing the rope together with a zigzag stitch. I glued a piece of leather to cover the end. Place a bobby pin over painter's tape with lines marked for seam allowance. Hold the fabric in place with the bobby pin and sew along each line. Now you've got 3 straight lines. Use the prong on a fork to roll fabric over to create pleats.
Don't throw that old yoga mat away. Do this instead. Cut a larger piece of yoga mat and place it on your floor. Use it as a mat for your pet. Grab a little yoga mat scrap and cut it. Fold it in half and hot glue the entire thing closed. Make a hole on one end of this little piece. Put a keychain through that hole. This little piece will help your keys float when in water. Cut a piece of yoga mat and wrap it around a travel mug to know what size you need. Place 2 Velcro dots on either end so that it will wrap around your travel mug and close. This will protect your hands from the heat. Grab a keyboard, measure the length and width that you need, cut that piece out, and then hot glue the entire piece closed. Place it on the edge of your keyboard on your desk and you have a wrist rest. Grab your tablet, place it on the end of a yoga mat. Flip it over so you know exactly how long you need that piece to be, and then cut that piece out. Fold the piece in half so that the fold is on one side and glue the sides on either side of the fold. There will still be an opening at the top, and this is where you can slide your tablet in and out of the case. Now you have a carrying case. Cut a larger piece of yoga mat and fold it into thirds. Hot glue the entire thing closed. Place it outside on the ground to protect your knees while gardening. Grab a picture frame, measure the back side onto a piece of yoga mat, and cut it to size. Place it on top of the backing, put it back into the picture frame, and close it. Place it somewhere in your home and use push pins and notes.
Grab a coordinating kitchen towel and pot holder. Fold the towel and lay it out flat and place the pot holder right in the center. Pin or clip it in place. Then head over to the sewing machine and sew it straight down the middle. Now grab a button and sew that onto the pot holder. This cute towel will now hook onto the handle of your stove or your dishwasher. It looks great and it's functional. Sew on a piece of elastic, creating 2 loops. Flip the pot holder over and use some fabric glue to attach a long piece of ribbon. Slide your toothbrush and toothpaste into the elastic, fold it in half, and tie the pouch together with a ribbon. Toss this in your bag and you're ready to go. Grab a pot holder and some quick dry fabric glue, fold it in half and glue it on just 2 of the sides. Hold it in place until the glue is completely dry. This will slip right over the handle of the pan.
So I'm gonna stick pool noodle onto the faucet like this. Next, I take the other end of the pool noodle and I hold it down so that it aims in the center of the bucket. I turn the water on slowly and I just wait to fill the bucket to the level I want. Now, how easy is this? Now I'm ready to get mopping. Now, a lot of people have trouble with drafts coming in under doors. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take a pool noodle and I'm gonna measure my door. What I picked up was a pillowcase from the dollar store. I'm gonna take this pool noodle, stick it inside, I'm gonna lay it back down on the table so it's nice and flat. I'm gonna go ahead and just wind it. So I'm gonna put a little dab of hot glue here, and then I'm just gonna run this along the edge. So this end is open because this is the top of the pillowcase. So all I'm gonna do is stick the pillowcase into the hole. Velcro adhesive. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel off the adhesive and I'm gonna place it. Now I have peeled the backing off and I'm going to stick it to door. Here it is on the door and I can still open and close the door with ease. So what I've got here is a pool noodle from an old project that's already cut. And then what I need to do from here is just take a pen or a pencil or marker and just kind of mark where this spot is. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a slit into about half of the pool noodle. Next, I'm gonna flip the noodle over and I've got these great little picture holder strips and you're gonna wanna put it on the back side of where each of these are. So I start by peeling the backing off. And now I stick and press it on the wall and I need to wait 30 seconds at minimum. I just open the pool noodle like so and I stick my broom handle inside. Here they are all hung up, and I'm just absolutely thrilled with how easy this was and how it turned out.
Place sponges in the bottom of your refrigerator baskets to keep your fruits and vegetables fresh and help them last longer. The sponges will soak up any unwanted water or other moisture. Wrap a sponge in 2 different places around the handle and hold it in place with a rubber band. Place your hands on the sponges and begin shoveling, raking, or sweeping. It'll protect your hands from getting blisters. Place the sponge between the wall and the hammer. Pull the nail out while protecting the wall with your sponge from the metal of the hammer. In a container, add 1/2 cup of water and 1/2 cup of fabric softener. Mix together and add your sponges. Let them sit for a while to soak up the mixture. To use them, squeeze out the extra fabric softener back into the container. Toss the sponge in the dryer with your wet clothes and turn the dryer on. When your load is dry, pull out your sponge and put it back in the fabric softener mixture.
Grab some inexpensive tension rods. Take 2 tension rods and install them horizontally in your closet. The front rod should be placed about a 1/2 inch lower than the back rod. This will give your shoes a slight angle forward without them falling off. You can organize boots as well. Place the tension rods vertically to keep boots upright and organized. Is the space under your kitchen sink a jumble of cleaning bottles? Clear out the space and install 1 larger sized tension rod horizontally and in front of any sink pipes. Hang all of your cleaning spray bottles from the rod. In any kitchen cupboard, install a series of 2 tension rods vertically.
Take plastic frames purchased from Dollar Tree and remove the paper inserts and the plastic wrap. Take the frames and lay them face up in rows next to each other in a drawer.
Grab a toilet paper roll, cut a slit down the toilet paper roll, tape 2 of them together, slide them onto a hanger, and slide your pants over the top of the cardboard. This will stop your pants from getting creases in them. Take a cord, clip it into a pants hanger, wind it around the hanger, and clip the other end into the other clip of the pants hanger. Now you have some easy cord organization. Place a rubber band on each side of the hanger. Place your garments onto the hanger. This will keep anything from slipping off the edges of your hangers. Grab a couple of old business cards. Fold them in half. Place one end over the top of the pants and clip that into a pants hanger. Now you can hang your pants with ease and it will not leave any crease marks. If you have wire hangers, grab 2 clothespins, clip them onto the wire hanger, and then clip your pants onto the hangers. This will prevent creases as well. Now, if you're short on storage space in your closet, all you need is a chain. Place one end of the chain onto your hanger in your first outfit. A couple lengths down, place the second hanger with the next shirt or outfit. This hangs them all vertically, saving you space in your closet as well as keeps it nice and flat. Grab a hanger and a package of shower curtain rings. Place all of the shower curtain rings onto the hanger, or as many as you need. Grab your necklaces and place them onto the shower curtain rings. 1 item per shower curtain ring. This keeps your jewelry hanging nicely and it makes it easy to grab when you're getting dressed. Grab your scarves and slide them through the rings. This will keep your scarves nice and organized, works well for decorative scarves and winter scarves. Grab your baseball caps and focus on the back side of the cap where there is a loop. This hangs them sideways into your closet and is a huge space saver.
Take 2 wire cabinet shelves and 2 plastic bins. Bend the legs of the shelves towards the center. Place storage container lids in the grooves. Take 2 wire shower caddies and weave them together. Use zip ties, cut the zip tie tails. Place shower caddies.
4x4 from my wood pile and gave it a rough sand on all sides and edges. I evenly spaced out 18 marks, alternating on either side so the marks were staggered. I used a 3/4 inch drill bit to drill holes in each mark. I put painter's tape on the drill bit to know how far to drill for each hole, and sanded the edges of the holes, and then applied pre-stain conditioner. I used a lone sock to apply a dark brown stain of a color I had pre-mixed. While that was drying, I grabbed some white tapered candles and let them soak in very warm water, but not boiling. After 5 to 10 minutes, I used a rolling pin to roll out the middle, and then I gently twisted the candle.
Grab a long length of brown craft paper. Start by wrapping some books in a textured neutral wallpaper or thick gift wrap. With a thick marker or paint pen, write the name of each guest on top or around the plate on the paper. For a whimsical touch, outline your spoons, forks, and knives with your marker. Try sketching dinner elements onto the paper, like a bottle and a wine glass. If you are serving a certain type of cheese or appetizer, write it on the paper. To go with your mismatched plates, tuck mismatched tea towels under the plates. Grab some balloons, satin ribbon, and glue dots at your local dollar store. Measure and cut the ribbon. Blow up a whole bunch of balloons, tie them off, and add satin ribbons to the end. Cut small pieces of painter's tape. Press the top of the balloon to the tape with the attached glue dot.
Start with a piece of white poster board. I'm going to cut these in half. Using a yardstick and a pencil, I'm going to trace out my letters. So now I'm going to grab a piece of white foam board. I am going to measure out about 3.5-inch strips. Then back on my letter N, I'm going to use some hot glue, make an outline of the entire letter all the way around. I'm going to take one of those foam board strips and my craft knife, and I am going to score just one side, but I'm not going to cut all the way through the foam. Once that's done, I'm going to slowly bend at each score line. So once I have this done, I can again use hot glue and apply the border all the way around the curved number here. Now that the letters and numbers are complete, it is time to fill them in. First way is with lights to make them true marquee letters. Now to add a little color to the marquee letters, I am going to use balloons for the name. To start, I'm going to need a wood crate, and I'm going to give this a good coat of paint here. I am using a top of a desk that I am no longer using anymore, and I'm going to take my painted crate and place it bottom side down. Then I'm just going to drill some holes and add some screws. Make sure to use screws that aren't going to go all the way through the table, but are long enough to really keep it secure. Then we just flip it over and we have this low table that's going to offer some great floor seating. To make it even more cozy, I'm adding some cushions to the ground. you're at the thrift store, pick up a couple of table runners. I want to make sure that the good side is facing down, and I'm just going to use some really strong duct tape to hold these together. I want to make sure the edges of this rug are even all the way around and up on the top, so I'm going to fold that down and then duct tape that part down. I picked up this vase and bowl at my local thrift store, and then add a light coat of spray paint to the outside. Then I grabbed some napkins, and I'm just going to gently pull apart the layers. I want to cut it down into smaller pieces. I'm going to start by applying a generous layer of Mod Podge, gently press it down with my fingers. I can go ahead and cover the bottom and the edges with smaller pieces. I am going to use some really strong glue to attach the smaller one to the bottom of the larger one.
Let's update this plain old corkboard. Grab some fun fabric to place over the corkboard itself. Cut a square slightly larger than the corkboard. Then attach the overhang of the fabric to the back of the board using just a few push pins. And then using the hot glue, go around the push pins to attach the fabric to the board. I hung it up on our office wall.
I grabbed a corrugated cardboard box and a tin can from my recycling for this elegant home decor. I cut the cardboard about a 1/4 inch taller than the tin can. I wet a tea towel and pressed it onto the top of the cardboard to make it damp, not wet. This helped to loosen it so I could pull the top layer off and expose the corrugated part. Then I flipped it over and painted the top 1/2 inch and top edge antique white using acrylic paint. I flipped it back and painted the whole corrugated surface in antique white, and then I started blending with the other colors. I used a sponge to add black, gray, and I spray painted some silver for a metallic touch. I added more antique white on top and blended it all together using my paintbrush. Once dried, I wrapped it around the tin can, hot glued it together.
I'm going to rip down all the fabric off of my lampshade. So I'm going to take it outside and give it a quick spray paint. And then after that, I decided I needed to spray paint one more thing, and that was a mason jar sealing part of the lid that I'm going to use later on. I'm going to take this wood slice. I'm going to give this a good coat of sealer. I'm also going to do like the live edges. And once that's all sealed, it's going to be time to grab that mason jar lid and drill a tiny hole in the middle. And now it's time to assemble. I have some E6000 industrial glue that I'm putting in a little hole where like a finial for a lamp would go. And that's where I'm going to kind of adhere that mason jar sealer. I'm going to put some more E6000 glue along the rim here. So I'll go ahead and set that down. Got it in place, and now it's time to drill. It's all good. Going to flip it up.
I grabbed some thrifted glassware for this brilliant garden decor. Then I grabbed some 2-part epoxy. I used a wood skewer to mix the epoxy and placed it around the bottom edge of one glass vase, then glued it to the bottom of the glass bowl. I set that aside and let it dry. I applied epoxy to the bottom of a different glass vase and placed the glass platter on top in the center. I grabbed the vase with the bowl and applied epoxy to the top and attached the third vase upside down, and applied epoxy to the top of the vase that is attached to the bowl, and I placed the other section on top.
Blow up a balloon, then grab some wood slices. Take 2 wood slices and glue the sides together using a low-temp glue gun. Let the discs bend slightly so they follow the curve of the balloon. To fill in, glue smaller-sized wood discs into these spaces. Once you have all the discs where you want them and the glue has set, pop the balloon. I styled my new wood slice bowl by laying some moss on a tray and nestling the wood slice bowl on top. Then I added a beautiful pink orchid. Pick up some inexpensive wicker baskets. Dip the paintbrush in the paint and then pounce. Take the brush and lightly brush the paint onto the basket in the main direction of the basket weave. This basket finish looks fantastic, styled with flowers or green plants. Take a wicker basket with a very light finish. Spray paint the basket in light layers with an oil-rubbed bronze color. Let the basket dry completely. Paint in light layers. You will notice that the paint dries very fast between layers because there is actually very little paint used.
I took this fleecy fabric softener plastic container, and then using an X-Acto knife, I just cut off the top portion. Next, I'm going to take some craft paper. I'm scrunching it up to create like a really rough texture, and then I'm going to tape it on where I need tape to hold in place and just cut out my handle, and then wrapping that again in masking tape. When I'm done with this, I'm going to create my paper mache, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rip the envelopes up into tiny little pieces. Then I'm going to add just a little bit of water before I turn on my blender. So I lay out the Mod Podge, and then I just grab a handful of the slurry and I just spread it around onto my plastic container.
First, we're going to repurpose a 1-gallon glass pickle jar, and then we have some decorative nautical rope. I'm measuring out vertical strips. Now, once I get all of my strips cut, I'm going to start using my glue gun to attach them on the side of the jar. And all I'm doing is I'm evenly spacing these out, and then I'll go in the middle of those sections and put a piece of rope, and then I'll do that, continue on until all 8. And I'm just going to start somewhere and kind of glue in a few places as I'm wrapping around, and then I'll glue the other 2, and it end up being a stack of 3, just to give it a finished look.
To start this project, I want to remove everything but the main section of this lamp. I'm going to add the glue to each of the joints and then leave it all to dry. I found these signs at the dollar store. I'm going to add a thinner wood round. A little wood glue will hold this into place perfectly. I'm going to find the middle and use the top of the lamp to trace a little circle. I'm ready to paint. I'm going to use the white chalky paint to cover both the base of the lamp and the wood. I want to attach the wood top to the lamp. The circle that I drew before is going to help me so that the lamp is correctly centered. Add some glue and then I can join them together and it'll be nice and solid.
Find some frames that you like, and you're going to take the glass out. We're going to spray the white vinegar on one side, grab this really cool stuff by Rust-Oleum and go over top. By using your paper towel and dabbing, it's going to create a design. Spray an even coat of the black paint. We're going to put our glass back into the frames.
I spied these license plates and knew I could do something with them. I wanted to make a flower, so I laid the license plate on a piece of white paper and cut it to size. Then I folded the paper in half and cut out half of a petal for my pattern and laid it on the back of the license plate and traced around it with a Sharpie. Using a tin snip, I cut it out. I turned up the edges with a plier. I also used a small paint can and rolled the plate along the can's edge to bend it. The center of the flower, I cut a plate in half, and then I cut out a circle. I made cuts into the center of the circle and bent the cuts upward. I drilled a hole in the center of the centerpiece and then drilled holes in the ends of each of the petals. I placed a bolt through each of the holes, and then using an electrical box cover, I drilled a hole in the center of that and one hole on each side of the center hole. I placed the bolt through the center hole and secured everything together with a nut. I threaded a cable tie through the 2 side holes in the box cover and then placed the plant stake around the bolt and secured it with the cable tie.
You know all those lonely donated lampshades? Pick up a matching pair. Pick up a thrifted belt. Run a bead of clear glue around the perimeter. Take the other lampshade, place it on top of the other lampshade, take some jute twine and tie the inner hardware of the 2 lamps together. Give the connected shades a little shake to make sure they are securely connected. Take the belt and buckle it around the skinny center of the 2 lampshades. Add a little glue to the loose end of the belt and secure it to the rest of the belt. Find a thin wood circle disc. Paint the edge with some acrylic paint. And peel and stick wallpaper is perfect for this project. Place the wallpaper disc on the lampshade base.